Right. So, what is the deal with matter and spirit? That's the question for today. So, I'm going to break down just four general views that people tend to have between the two of them, and then maybe talk about how the deep and center of the tradition, Christian Orthodoxy, might respond to that. And it might respond in a very surprising way than what some of you may think. So, what's going on? Well, there's generally four worldviews, I guess you could say, four approaches towards understanding how matter and spirit relate to one another. But what are they? Well, the first one's this: only the material matters. That this world is all there is. There's atoms and there's processes and there's nature and there's all this, but that's all there is. It's just a mechanism that's going on, and somehow life is a part of it, but there's really nothing more to it than just that. And so if you have that type of understanding of the world, then all you're going to say is the material world is the only thing that matters. And that's a pretty popular view today, especially in the midst of the scientific revolution that happened and how we are now in the technological or informational revolution. Science is the thing that rules at the end of the day. The technical language about the universe. But there's another one, too. You might have this other view that says only the spiritual matters. That forget all of this stuff. This is all just an illusion. This is actually all a projection from the mind of God. And so we are actually in some dream, or my dream, or your dream, or on. We are the dream of a giant cosmic turtle. That's another one. But the idea is that only the spirit matters. And it's kind of the opposite of saying matter is the only thing that matters. Let's keep going. This is where things get interesting. You might have this understanding that matter and spirit are in conflict, that they are constantly trying to fight over one another. So it's maybe not so much that matter is the only thing that matters or spirit's the only thing that matters, but that the two of them are in tension and they can't really coexist well. A lot of church folk think in that way. And part of it is because of the vocabulary of the Apostle Paul in the New Testament when he says we can either listen to spirit or we can listen to flesh. And down through the ages, people have understood that as kind of a Christianizing of the Platonic worldview that says that there's only spirit and matter is beneath and spirit is higher. And so there's a hierarchy. Spirit is more important than matter in Plato's worldview. Well, when that came into the church, that mindset was continued when people would read people like the Apostle Paul, when he would say, listen to spirit, don't listen to flesh, because flesh is this, right? It's our body. Well, even though Paul uses the word flesh, he may not actually be meaning flesh, but maybe what he's meaning is don't listen to things that are contrary to spirit. You could possibly say that flesh maybe could be translated as selfish ego. Listen to spirit. Do not listen to selfish ego. It's a very different thing, but what that does is it hijacks the real meaning of what Paul was probably trying to say away from Greek Platonism so that we can have maybe a better understanding. Because I believe in Paul's understanding, spirit and matter have a much more interesting way of relating to each other than just saying spirit is against matter. Does that make sense? Now, in particular church circles, there might be this heavy emphasis that spirit is always against matter. Well, there's nothing that says spirit is against snow. There's nothing that says spirit is against rain or flowers or good yogurt or ice cream or barbecues or lemonade or all these things. Those are all good. Okay. So how do we actually understand it? If it's not only the material matters, if it's not only the spiritual matters, if it's not matter and spirit in conflict, then what's the deal? Well, we had this conversation way back in church history in the year 451. So there was a council called Nicaea that was trying to understand, how do the two natures of Jesus exist or coexist? And so they would say, all right, by looking at Jesus, we have to say God is 100% present, but also humanity is 100% present in Jesus. What's going on that he's 100% both of these things? Well, at the Council of of Chalcedon, they came up with this. It's a wonderful phrase. Without confusion, change, division, or separation. That somehow within the body of Jesus, divinity and humanity exist without being confused for one another. That divinity and humanity do not change from one into the other. They're still present as they are. Divinity and humanity do not exist in division from one another. But then also not in separation. So they're not to be separated either. And so what we have in this person of Jesus is this both and, not either or. Is he this or this? It's like wrong answer. It's a both and. And so a positive way of saying it is that the divinity and the Jesus and the humanity of Jesus are so inseparably close that it's like they're dancing together. And if you try to eliminate or ignore one or the other, then you've undone the incarnation. Now, why does this matter? Well, because spirit and matter are actually inseparably close. If we can say it about Jesus, then maybe we can say it about ourselves, that we are somehow a dance of spirit and matter without confusion or change, division or separation. Maybe we should understand ourselves as like this unique paradox. It's kind of like the incarnation. But when we have this kind of understanding, that means we don't need to ignore the body. It means that we don't need to ignore this world or even diminish the experiences of this world. Because maybe it's not that matter only matters or that spirit only matters. It's not that spirit and matter are against each other. It's that spirit is experienced through matter. That we actually have spiritual experiences with really good yogurt, with a really good barbecue, by having a really good hug from a friend, by having a really good nap. All of these things that we usually associate are just material might actually also be quite spiritual as well. Now, in the midst of all of this, we probably also fall into this understanding that, well, but science names these things. And listen, I'm not hungry. It's really just like the processes of my stomach are telling me that I need to eat more food, right? Or that I'm thirsty, or that it's time to take a nap, or something of those lines, right? It's there could be a scientific understanding of how to know what's going on with the sunset. But that's a technical term. It still doesn't involve the word beauty or self-love in a good way, to take care of yourself. There's a possibility that when we use scientific language and spiritual language, that these two vocabularies are actually both naming the same thing. They're just doing it from different worldviews. And so if you have an understanding that matter only matters, you're probably going to fall into using scientific language to describe the world around you. If you think that only spirit matters, you might only choose to use spiritual or poetic language to describe the world around you. But if you have this understanding that spirit and matter are inseparably close, just like the Council of Nicaea said about the body of Jesus, then it doesn't matter the vocabulary, because both vocabularies are naming the same thing, which is that spirit and matter can coexist, that they are inseparably close, and that this whole world is a material and spiritual experience. And so I feel as though that actually changes everything, because it maybe means that when you experience thirst or tiredness or a really wonderful sunset, or you're sitting by a nice bonfire with friends, all of those physical sensations, they're not just physical sensations. It might also be spirit trying to talk to you through these material experiences. So my goodness, pay attention to your spiritual life by paying attention to your material life, because that's part of the mystery of the incarnation, which is at the center of the Christian tradition. So that's it. That's all for today. So we'll catch you later. Grace and peace.